You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hello and welcome to the 42 Cast, your ultimate answer to fandom, geekiness, and everything. As always, I am your host Nathan, and we have another great episode lined up for you where we're going to talk about Star Trek Discovery Season 4. Now I realize that by the time this episode drops, Star Trek Discovery Season 5 will have already aired a few episodes. I have no one but myself to blame. There were the two hiatuses? I don't know, what is the plural of that one? This year, and that's thrown the whole schedule off, and so I thought that I had plenty of time to release this episode, and I did not. So I apologize for that. I hope you still enjoy it, even if you've gotten a few episodes into Discovery Season 5, and so some of our speculation in this will be kind of moot, but most of our commentary will be on Season 4 anyway, so hope you enjoy that commentary. So without further ado, here is the episode already in progress. I am going to do the thing that I always forget to do, and up front say there will be spoilers in this episode. So if you're somebody who worries about spoilers, first of all, why did you decide to listen to an episode about something that you haven't watched yet? But second of all, go watch the season and then come back and listen to this episode. But before we do that, let's meet our cast for this week. And so starting off, she is my co-host for all the Star Trek episodes. You've already heard her voice, and that is my friend Stephanie. How are you doing, Stephanie?
Hello. Other than, my body being upset that I'm in my mid-30s and suddenly deciding to take up gardening, and I'm sore. And still recovering from, the fun COVID cough. It's been almost a month and a half now, and I'm still coughing now and then. So other than that, I'm fine.
Yeah, I know the pains of the COVID cough. In fact, my COVID cough caused me to cough so hard that I threw my back out, and my back hasn't been right ever since then. So yay, COVID.
I mean, yeah, I went almost 3 years with complete avoidance of it, and then this newest Omicron variant is getting everybody. But yeah, I think I threw out my neck with one of the coughing fits I had, because it was bad, and I couldn't turn my head for a few days while I was in the midst of COVID, so that was fun.
But it's okay, because as one of the local school administrators told me, we all have immunities now, so we don't have to worry about it. Yep. So
until the next variant.
That makes me worry quite a bit. But as I go out into the community, I notice I'm the only one wearing a mask anymore, and
I'm one of the only also, and fun times.
Yep.
But yeah, I haven't had the cough yet long enough yet to be referred to a long COVID specialist. So I don't know what to make of that. Am I grateful? Am I not? I don't know, but I'm still coughing. So it is what it is, I guess.
No, I mean, I can tell you, at least from my experience, it was the same thing. I was coughing 6-7 weeks after I got it. And eventually it did go away, but it was an extremely long amount of time, and I thought that was kind of ridiculous.
Fingers are crossed. Tim is already done with his cough, has been for weeks. It is getting better, but it's still consistent and obnoxious. But
I'm glad at least that you don't have all the other symptoms too anymore. So,
right. Yeah. I didn't have to postpone again because of COVID. But you might have to edit out a lot of coughs. So.
But yeah, I see all the pictures you're posting of your garden. So I know that you're getting a lot done there too.
I'm trying.
All right. Well, it's good having you back on the show, Stephanie.
Good to be back.
All right. And next up, it is the man you love to hate, and that is Ryan. How are you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing fantastic, all things considered, I guess. Job hunting, so I got that going for me right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm constructively spending all my free time getting into pointless arguments about Strange New Worlds online. So that's good times, about who they're casting as Kirk, or why this couldn't work, or the fact that the captain's quarters are too big, or just good times, fun stuff.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah, good. I mean, I did not. I had my COVID experience in the beginning of this year. I didn't have a lingering cough, but my sleep, I had like weird sleep patterns for a few months afterwards, which I don't know if it was attributable to that. But yeah.
Actually, now that you mention it, my sleep has been completely screwed up lately too, and it's really driving me bonkers.
I mean, I think that I had that when I actually had it, like all the symptoms, but it went away after I was done with that.
Well, I don't know if it was weird in our house, because my test came back positive, but my wife took 2 tests and both of hers came back negative, but she had all the traditional symptoms, plus she lost smell and taste for about a month or so. And so, I mean, it's like, yeah, she probably had it, but no test would confirm that, at least not the 2 that we took.
No, that was the same thing with me. Everyone else in the family tested positive. I tested negative, but I had all the same symptoms everybody else had. So, just because you get a negative result, I don't think means, and it's probably because there's so many variants that like the tests maybe don't like hit everyone at the same percentage accuracy or something. But yeah, no,
you weren't scraping your brain enough.
Well, no. So the first time, so that's why I thought I got a negative the first time. So I was like, okay, I probably didn't do it like enough because they say like 15 seconds and I wasn't counting or anything. I just like, all right, put it in the thing. But yeah, the next time I actually had on my phone 15 seconds, and then took it out and everything, and it still tested negative. So I don't know.
I actually, I kept testing negative too, and even Tim was, and both of us were certain we had it. And I happened to read somewhere that with newer variants, it's not always presenting as commonly in your nasal cavities like it was earlier on, and to actually try swabbing your throat. And so both of us did that, where we swabbed back as far as we could in our throat without vomiting, and then also did nasal swabs as well. And after both of us got our throats, we both pinged positive when like 10 minutes earlier we had done just nasal ones and were negative.
Interesting.
So it's a possibility. I mean, all of us are probably at the point where we're not going to be having to test again for a while, fingers crossed. Right. But I mean, it's anecdotal. I don't know if that was just something someone happened to say and it got its way around to me, but both of us were testing negative until we also added a throat swab into the mix. So something to keep in mind.
Yeah, it's worrying because of all the different variants and everything, because that's what I suspected too. It had something to do with the fact that the test can't possibly be the same for like every possible mutation of this virus. Like something's probably different, and that's why I tested negative. But yeah, so everybody, like even if you test negative, if you feel like you have COVID symptoms, please treat it like COVID. I don't feel like, oh well, I must have like the cold or something instead. No, doesn't mean that.
I mean, if nothing else comes out of all this, maybe people will start treating being sick like the correct way. Like, it's I'm contagious, but I can still go into work. No, maybe you shouldn't.
Or at least wearing masks.
Treat everything like COVID, or at least wear masks. Yeah, exactly.
Like seriously, I still wear a mask all the time, and aside from actually getting COVID, that's the only time I've been sick in like the last 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So.
My kids started going to school with the school year. I hadn't been sick with anything through the whole COVID, thing. It was like we were just like virus free here in the house for almost 2 years.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
No sinus infections, no flus, no colds. And normally those hit me all the time. And last 2.5 years, seriously, the only thing I've gotten is unfortunately COVID. But it took 2.5 years for it to hit me. So
yeah.
I guess that's a win.
And I mean, I hate to say it, but if you have to get, COVID, I guess right now Omicron's the one to get, So,
what COVID is chic right now?
Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah. So I'm sorry. Anything else going on for you, Ryan?
Just trying to stay up on all the entertainment that's out there. Stranger Things, Strange New Worlds, The Boys, you name it. I mean, I cannot turn on. It's like I sat down to this and I realized, oh man, I have an episode of Orville to watch. I started in my head doing my mental list of what I've got to watch, and the new season of The Flash finally dropped on Netflix, so I have to start on that one too. So
yeah, as I get caught up in all the shows, all the recordings I should have been doing and have been pushed back. So yes, we'll definitely need to do one on The Flash. But yeah, I haven't watched this week's Orville. I've still got Strange New Worlds to watch. I've still got the whole thing. I still got Obi-Wan to watch. I've still got Miss Marvel to watch.
Same here. I am so far behind on everything because everything came out all at once.
Oh, right, exactly. I've got 3 more of the Umbrella Academy to watch, and then we're gonna pick whatever the next thing is we're gonna watch. So yeah.
I finished The Boys, haven't gotten to Umbrella Academy yet. So
I did Umbrella Academy and The Boys back to back, and it made me realize watching those 2 shows about superheroes back to back to each other can really kind of mess up your whole perception of the superhero genre.
I can believe it.
All right, well, it's good to have you back on the show, Ryan.
Good to be here.
But now it's time for our 5-minute controversy, and as those of you who have followed the show for a while know, the 5-minute controversy is just a way for us to loosen up before the show starts and give you a little bit of insight into what we think about something going on right now in geek news. And so today, or yesterday really, an article dropped where Roger Corman was talking about how Marvel films, he likes them, but they tend to be completely effects driven, and he thinks that really Marvel should start paying attention to James Cameron, who always puts story first. Now, I had to check that it wasn't an Onion article before I read it, because that's what I thought when I first saw the headline. But no, this is legitimate. There are actual quotations in the article from Roger Corman. So Stephanie, what do you think about this?
I mean, they're completely different types of movies.
Well, I mean, James Cameron does make movies that are sort of action. I mean, if you just think about them as the action, venture sort of genre.
I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of his stuff gets overhyped to begin with. So maybe I'm not a good judge here, but I mean, I still don't know who the dude is that made this statement anyways. So, I don't know. I think it's fine to have just fun popcorn flicks in addition to strong story films and stuff like that. And also, I am just so not caring about Avatar at all. I didn't care when the first one came out 20 years ago, and I certainly don't care that there are more coming out when he should instead be focusing on a second Alita. So,
although I don't think he directed Alita.
On James Cameron.
Yeah, I think he just was a producer on Alita. I don't believe that he directed it.
Still, he's still the one who has control of that project.
Mm-hmm.
And I want another Alita because that was the best anime adaptation, especially Western adaptation I've ever seen. So
no, it was good. I think it was a 20th Century Fox thing though. So really, it's Disney who gets to make the call over whether or not they make another one. So I think that's the issue right now, is that Alita did okay, but it didn't do great. And so I think that it's sort of one of those bubble things of it would be great to have a sequel, but maybe Disney is like, it didn't make enough money to get a sequel. So I think I
remember hearing something that he wants to do more, but he had obligations with Avatar. I don't know. Again, I don't care about Avatar at all. The only thing I want to come out of James Cameron is more Alita, no matter how it is that he's involved with that project.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I don't think anybody wanted 4 more. Like, there's going to be 5 Avatar movies total. And I don't think. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and he's making them all back to back to back. So they're all just going to come out. And the thing is, he really missed the boat on this one because it has been so long since the first. And the first movie, like, it had, although I don't understand it, but it had a following unlike any movie I've ever seen other than Titanic, which is also one of his movies.
Yeah.
But, like, people were actually, like creating their own, I mean, cult/religion, like saying like, oh yeah, the Na'vi, like, like we're gonna be like just like them, and it's just like, wow, like that was like a level of obsession that I haven't seen about a movie in a long time.
It was a very pretty movie, but it was just a very expensive Fern Gully.
Mm-hmm. I know, when I was watching it, I was like, wow, like I've seen this before. It was called Fern Gully, but all right,
I'm pretty sure Fern Gully even is a knockoff of another movie with the same exact premise.
It's Dances with Wolves is the one everyone throws around.
We go.
Yeah. But yeah, Ryan, what do you think about this statement?
Okay, so I've kind of been kicking it around in the back of my head since you mentioned that this was going to be the controversy, and okay, my first thought is that Roger Corman's still alive. Okay.
Yeah, I was surprised too.
Yeah. And 2, I really just think he wants Martin Scorsese to notice him. But so that's part of it.
Notice me, senpai.
Exactly. But I guess, I mean, here's the sad part. It's like at first I just rolled my eyes, but in thinking about it a little more, I don't necessarily disagree with him. And now let me explain that. Are Marvel movies effects driven? They are effects heavy. I wouldn't say they're effects driven. Whereas I would say the thing about James Cameron is if you look at his entire library of work, like from it went to his head at some point. I don't know if it's Titanic or Avatar or whatever, but at some point, like he's like, look what I can do, and like the effects became more important than the story. But if you look at his earlier stuff, Terminator 2, Aliens, The Abyss. He had a good balance of special effects and story. And so I honestly feel like that's actually what Marvel's already doing for the most part. They've had a few bumps with Phase 4. But if you look back over all 76 Marvel movies or however many it's been by now, I feel like in the general, in the aggregate, they have a pretty good balance, especially if you look at it on the long run of a balance of story and effects. Could every Marvel movie be cut down to like a half an hour if you got rid of all the effects and the fights? Yeah, sure. But you could probably say that of every James Cameron movie too. So that's not really much of a statement. I feel like this is just Roger Corman trying to make hay where there is none, just trying to start something that's silly.
Yeah, because I mean, this is the thing. This is why I said like I had to check if it wasn't an Onion article. James Cameron has been the person that I have always held up as I have this new technology that I want to demonstrate, and then just sort of builds a loose story around it. Like, to me, like James Cameron is the ultimate example of the effects central movie. And so when I heard that, I was like, you've got that backwards. Whereas Marvel, because they have to plot these things out so they connect and everything, they always have to have a story. And yeah, do they have a lot of effects in the movie? Sure. But to me, like, Marvel tends to be more story driven than just about, the most of the Hollywood stuff with the big budget action type movies. And so I was really surprised by that comment. And I was like, wow, that just comes out of left field. It was just kind of weird to me. And I've posted this online, I shared the link, and people keep saying like, yes, because the story for Avatar is so memorable, or pointing out that it's derivative of other things. I
mean, I thought the whole point of that movie was showing off this really awesome motion cap technology and 3D effects. And oh my gosh, I so want 3D to die out because I don't like having to go into a movie medicated just so that I can manage the migraine that it's going to cause.
Right.
And
yeah, no, that's the same thing with my wife.
I have friends who insist on always going to see the 3D version, and I'm like, do we have to? Because I have to medicate beforehand. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a few movies in 3D before we found out that my wife got bad headaches. You know, we saw Tron Legacy in 3D. We saw the first Avengers movie in 3D, and I didn't really feel like it added enough because, you know, they weren't made as this is a 3D experience where the 3D it's just a regular movie that can be watched in 3D. And I didn't feel like the depth really added much to the experience. And it's like, I don't feel like we really need to have like a 3D version of like every action movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's obnoxious and gives me migraines. And I've had a 3D TV for 12 years now, and I've used the 3D feature a whopping twice. Once to watch The Lion King and once to show off to somebody else.
Nice.
And these were both like within the first few months of me having it. And by The Lion King too, I mean the original animated one, just because that was the only Blu-ray I had that was also 3D.
Oh, they've made a 3D version of the animated one?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Huh. Okay.
I mean, this was 12 years ago when they were making everything compatible with 3D because it was new again.
Because what you want to see in 3D is Mustafa falling into that stampede. You know, I need to see that coming out of the screen at me.
Oh, man. All right. Well, yeah, guys, I think that's enough for this controversy, quote unquote, since we're all in agreement here. But yeah,
he just wants them to make his Fantastic Four canon. That's what he's after.
It's still the best one that they've made to date, even though it was never released.
I mean, I'm still trying to figure out who Roger Corman is, and I just find it hilarious that he was apparently sued by his sons. So
Yeah, I mean, his claim to fame in sort of geek circles, as far as like comic book geeks, is that he did make a Fantastic Four movie in the 90s because the studio, they didn't tell him that it wasn't going to be released, but the studio wanted to keep the rights. So they said, make a movie. Here's $1 million, you know, $1 million to make a movie. And so he made a very, very low budget Fantastic Four movie, which is available, you know, to watch, you know, through all sorts of illegitimate ways, but it was never released, and so he's kind of salty about that, and the actors involved are kind of salty about it because they all thought it was a real movie that was going to get released. But I think the funny thing is, script-wise, it's the best one that they've done yet. The Fantastic Four, all the bigger budget ones.
I have heard of that infamous Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah, the bigger budget ones, story-wise, weren't as good, although they look better. But yeah, anyway. But yeah, we're out of time for this. But sorry, everybody, I'm a little flustered because I am medicated because of that throwing my back out that I mentioned earlier. But yeah, let's pause now for a promo from another fine podcast, and then we're going to come back and talk about Star Trek Discovery.
Pardon the interruption. We'll bring you back to your podcast in just a moment. But first, promo for the Cosmic Pizza Podcast.
In the Cosmic Pizza Podcast, your pizza delivery guys, Dan, Sean, and Paul, serve you a slice of life.
As we discuss literally anything in the universe.
Conspiracy theories?
Movies that we've liked. Women in comedy, voice actors, film directors and producers, authors. But what we don't talk about is pizzas.
Wednesday, I'm here with you people. It's wild.
And we're back. And like we mentioned at the top of the show, we are talking about Star Trek Discovery Season 4. Just the one caveat here, we are talking about it several months after the season finished airing, both because I'm always behind on this stuff, and second, because we've all been having COVID or life stuff or whatever, and this recording just kept getting pushed back. So
yeah, this one is cursed.
Right. So we might be a little vague around the edges, but but I think we all know, like, you know, the core of this season. So just overall thoughts on season 4 of Discovery as far as, before we get into like the nitty gritty of it, like, did you like the direction it was going? Did you, feel like this, because we've kind of had like this thing where Discovery has changed quite a bit from season to season. And I feel like this one was more of they finally figured out what they're doing in the last season. And this one was kind of more of, okay, this is Discovery. And we kind of move forward with this one. Did you feel that way? Like they sort of found their footing? And then how do you like the direction that they're going with it? So let's start with you on this one, Ryan.
There are aspects of it that I very, very much enjoyed. There were things that I thought that they did that were unique to Star Trek as a whole. It's kind of like they have a little bit of a multiple personality disorder to an extent, because every season you start it and you're really not 100% sure what series you're going to be watching. It's going to have like 5 or 6 characters that but you've no clue what sort of Star Trek this is going to be. And I guess my concern about it is just that they feel the need to up it every single season. The first season, it's going to be war in the Alpha Quadrant. Second season, time angels. Third season, the Federation is all but destroyed because warp speed doesn't exist anymore. Fourth season, solar systems are being wiped out, or at least planets and being wiped out one after the other. And I mean, I'm a little scared going into the 5th season with all this. How do they keep doing it? I guess I was kind of hoping that they would just dial it back a little. I'm not asking for episodic. I think Strange New Worlds, we've got that, we're good. But I think they can do something that's a seasonal arc that has a character development that doesn't have to be full on, universally changing like they did with this season. I didn't hate it. And like I said, there were moments of it, and sadly, I am, vaguing this like crazy because it's only coming back in bits and pieces. I'm reading IMDb recaps and Memory Alpha recaps as we speak. But all in all, there, like I said, there were just things that I really liked and things which I've immediately forgotten them because it was just so Discovery, if that makes sense.
Okay,
it gets lost in the background.
Yeah. Were you disappointed that it wasn't the planet killer from the original series?
Yes and no. That would have been a nice callback. That would have been really neat. Or if it had been connected to it somehow.
Right, honestly, it's a derivative of it. Yeah.
It still could be. I mean, they could still at some point in time, decide that maybe that's what the species 10C or whatever was fighting or something. Who knows? They could still somehow work it in. But I feel like had they done that, I think here's the thing. I really feel like Discovery is, of all the Star Treks, they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. If they had done somehow some sort of connection to the Planet Killer, been like, look at them, they're just trying to use nostalgia, trying to cash in on old Star Trek. And if they didn't do it, it's like, well, why didn't they do it? It was there. It would have been perfect. And so, yeah, I've never seen a Star Trek series as divisive as Discovery is to the fandom.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even Juliet, who's watching the other new stuff, refuses to watch Discovery, specifically only because of Burnham being Spock's quote-unquote sister. She's like, no, I'm out because of that. And I'm like, really? Of all the things?
Why?
Like, we've already revealed, like, he had a secret brother that nobody knew about. So, like, an adopted sister is too much. Like, okay.
It makes no sense. Yeah, I mean, like anyone who points that out, I will point out the fact that in Star Trek, Kirk had a brother that everyone saw die, and then they all forgot about him by Star Trek 5. Because he said, I had a brother once, and McCoy and Spock like, really? We didn't know that. You saw his dead body.
Yeah.
It was me with a mustache, But yeah.
Yeah, when my daughter and I watched through TOS and then the movies, yeah, that hit me really hard too, because we kind of like watched it as a continuous string, right? And so it's just like, yeah, that's really jarring, But anyway. All right, Stephanie, what do you think about this season?
I mean, what Star Trek besides the lower decks really hit the ground running on season 1? Actually, I've heard Strange New Worlds has, but I've still only seen the first episode of that. So don't answer that, I guess. But like seriously, all of the classic, quote unquote classic Treks now. Ouch, that's a little painful to say. Almost all of those started getting, the first season was just like, okay, I can dig this, but it needs help. And then it started finding its pace, and then by season 4 onward, we were good to go. Unfortunately, with Enterprise, it was too little too late. And man, I was one of those people who rage quit Enterprise, and now I really regret it, because upon rewatching it, the 4th season started getting good. Oh well.
I'm very fascinated when we get to Enterprise, because it was so funny. Rachel and I just binged through Voyager season 1 like that. Like after DS9 and she still says DS9 is her favorite, but at school and everything was stressing her and whatever. So we were like went through like DS9 fairly slow. We like just binged season 1 of Voyager in a snap. And she's very engaged with it at this point. It wasn't as bad as I remembered. Because I always think of seasons 1 and 2 of Voyager of being like, oh, those were the awful seasons. Season 1 of Voyager was actually a little bit better than I thought. I think a lot of the episodes that I'm sorry, I'm diverging into Voyager just a little bit, but you know, Voyager, after season 2, every season seems to have a distinct flavor, but I think they might have made 1 and 2 without a gap between them, because the way that 1 dropped like sort of mid-season and was very short. 1 and 2 seem to have the same like sort of tone, and so it's hard in my memory to differentiate those. And now I'm realizing all the episodes that I thought were the bad episodes aren't in season 1, they're in season 2, so we're gonna hit those soon. So it'll be interesting. I knew the Warp 10 one was in season 2, but there are other ones that I'm remembering that I'm like, oh, I thought that was in season 1, but we got through the whole season, we didn't have it yet. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
Anyways, so it seems kind of on par, and that's one of the reasons too why I was really giving Discovery a chance, because I enjoyed the first season, but I wasn't really sold on it entirely. But then again, I kept just thinking, you know, every Star Trek is like that. And while I think other entries in New Trek have been doing better, I mean, Picard has its issues, but I still enjoyed season 1 better than I enjoyed season 1 of Discovery. Discovery also gets some slack, I guess, for the fact that it's the first of the new one. And the first shift of bringing Star Trek into the modern era. So yeah, it's unfortunately getting a lot of that decisiveness from the fact that it is kind of still the experimental show of New Treks. It's also the one that takes the broadest turn away from episodic than any other bits of Trek we've had. And as Ryan said, they do keep upping the ante. And I'm kind of hoping, because I did more or less enjoy season 4 a lot better, especially when they didn't have as big of a letdown as season 3 caused for the burn. That was my biggest gripe with last season. But I think they have potential with this big, bad, horrible, all things are on the line storyline. They managed to also turn it into a way to get the show back to a ongoing path of discovery, because now they have broken that galaxy barrier and made contact in a space that no other Star Trek has gone before.
Okay, I'm going to have to stop you there, because this is one of the things that annoyed me with this season and tells me that, and you know, they've said a lot of the writers for Discovery are people that they brought in specifically because they're not Star Trek fans. All right, there was a whole episode of the original series with people from the Andromeda Galaxy that actually modified the Enterprise so it could go outside the galaxy barrier without any problems. So they have already encountered alien life beyond the galaxy before, and also have actually been beyond the galactic barrier at least once before. And then comes to saying, "Oh, well, this has never happened before." I'm like, no, like. This has happened before.
Classified. It was classified. You know? Like the spore drive.
It also seems like they're getting ready to redo TOS also, and basically the canon now starts at next gen. So who knows? I mean, and honestly, TOS, for all of its charms, it was not even canon within itself. So I try not to really let too many of those types of things well in any of my criticisms with any other Star Trek, because even DS9 and TNG are filled with them. So yeah, where was I going? Oh yeah, there's the chance though to actually, play on the name Discovery and turn this into a arc of Discovery, instead of trying to up the ante as to, okay, now it's from the solar system to the galaxy to the whole universe. How about we just go with some of that discovery and reunification of the Federation and all that stuff? I mean, I would really, oh crap, I'm spacing on the name that I gave it now, but I would really like to see Navarre, more of the Vulcan and wow,
Romulan.
Romulan. I'm thinking of every other Star Trek alien except Romulan.
I want to see more of the Vulcan and Saru, but we'll get to that.
Oh yeah, that too.
That was a highlight.
But definitely I want more of what's going on in Navarre, because I think that is awesome how they brought that in, and we get to see the final payoff of reunification with Spock.
Yeah, I kind of gotta agree with that. I mean, it seems like I don't want them to go outside the galaxy for explorations for multiple reasons. One, it's gonna be a higher budget by default.
Mm-hmm.
You have to assume like outside of the galaxy, like we can suspend our disbelief and assume for Trek reasons, and they have tried to explain it 4 or 5 times over, why everyone in the Milky Way looks vaguely humanoid.
Mm-hmm.
But like beyond the galaxy, it's going to be different, and so that's just going to be a whole another
bringing up that Andromedan episode again when Spock mind melds with one of them, like, because they basically took humanoid form, and he talks about how their minds were so completely alien and they were beings that had like 100 limbs and all this. Like, he sort of basically describes like Lovecraftian horrors as what they really are, like their true forms. And so it's like, that's what like life beyond the galaxy, they should give us things that are like really, really alien and out there. Yeah.
Which they did do in Discovery.
Right. No, true. I mean, the jellyfish monsters. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I think they should avoid. There's just too much. One of the things I always liked about Star Trek is like they're saying, hey, we've barely explored our galaxy.
Yeah.
I mean, like we've got a pretty good idea about the Alpha Quadrant, although we're still even discovering new planets here, and besides which, it's been like 900 odd years. Let's explore what we already know and revisit it. Like you said, they need to reunify they jumped between season 3 and season 4. It's been a few months, and they've reunified a good portion of the Federation. I mean, they should have. Let's see them focus on that. And I mean, I know we keep going off on like the actual season or whatever, but like it seems like since they did the Klingon, we haven't seen a Klingon in Picard. We haven't seen a Klingon anywhere else since season 2 of Discovery, and they're afraid to show one in any new.
Well,
Trek
we're
now,
going to get Worf in season 3 of Discovery, so we'll see if they put new makeup on him or if it's the traditional makeup that he's had.
Season Picard.
I'm sorry. Picard. Season 3 of Picard. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So exactly. But they feel this need to just like weirdly change. You can argue about the Klingons, that's fine or whatever. But even in this, they showed a Ferengi that looked like a goblin, like some sort of evil.
I assumed it looked to me like it was a Ferengi Klingon hybrid. I assumed that was like a Quark Grilka descendant.
Oh, man. Well, that would at least be something that would explain it. Otherwise,
because they were showing a lot of scary. Because the president of the Federation was like a Cardassian Bajoran human.
Bajoran.
Yeah, because she said she's from, or like her family's from Earth, but she had Cardassian and Bajoran features also. So,
they were showing a lot of the interspecies development that we've had in the last 900 years.
Right.
Yeah. Which is particularly funny considering no one, since warp didn't exist for a while, that everyone's getting around and having these hybrid species.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get that, and I mean, there were some weird things like when they're like, we're going to have representatives from every quadrant in the galaxy, and I'm like, wait. Like, I mean, it was cool because they did like do some shots and show some aliens we haven't seen in a while. Like we saw like Morn's Race and, you know, some of these other ones in there. But it's like, wait, if like you're only slowly bringing warp back and you have like the one dilithium, like how are you getting people all the way from the Delta Quadrant like over here to like sort of have this conference with you guys? And like they didn't.
Discovery taxi service.
Yeah, apparently.
I found that one kind of strange. I mean, it was a nice shot, like, and it was nice to see all those old faces, but like it was weird plot wise. Like I didn't get like how they did that. But yeah, I mean, it's sort of my sort of thing about this season is that I also like the show is called Star Trek Discovery, and it feels like we're not, you know, doing the discovery part of the thing. And I get Discovery's had a weird sort of genesis. You know, originally it was conceived of, oh, if we get more than one season, it'll become an anthology show, or we'll just do like some completely different like ship with a different crew or whatever, just jump around in the Star Trek universe. But then they decided, wait, no, like if this was good enough with this crew, maybe we should do something with this. But hey, maybe let's like put something familiar. So we'll have the Enterprise, we'll have Pike, you know. So we're still showing something, you know, with a character we haven't seen a lot of, but we also bring in some familiar elements. And then they're like, okay, well, that's what we're going to do this Pike series. That would be redundant to have another series in the same time period. So let's have Discovery go into the future. And it's been kind of like the show's just been like so massively like shifting around. And now it's like, okay, this is the future Trek. Do I have some like weird things that this is the Chris ship and the crew that they keep choosing? Like these are like the most important, like, because if they could jump outside the galaxy, I would have said, okay, that's a justification for this ship and this crew because it's the only ship that can like go outside the galaxy or whatever. But that wasn't it. They had to go through, you know, and actually pass through the barrier. And it's like somebody brought out to me, it's like it's a Viking longship just showed up. And there was like, we're going to solve like, you know, like the like global warming and all these problems that we have, and people just being like, yes, you're the most qualified people to, you know, to handle these things.
I mean, it definitely made sense in season 3, seeing as how warp drive wasn't around for everybody, but the spore drive, you know, had no problem with that. But I mean, I guess they still tried playing on the fact that they are still trying to rebuild the dilithium supply. And so Discovery is still one of the only ships capable of making such long trips. And it's still the fastest. But
yeah, no, I mean,
I get your point.
Yeah, I get that. But it's just like, they even with, you know, Trek accelerated learning and everything else, I just find it hard to believe that they're as up to speed and as expert on the technology and everything like as people who are native to that time period. Like that's where I have a problem with it. But but you know, otherwise, you know, I feel like the show has kind of found like a direction, even though I would have also preferred them being more like, let's unify the Federation and have that be the theme. I didn't feel like it needed to be like this big galaxy ending, you know, storyline.
I was trying to say, the galaxy ending thing is kind of what brought everybody who was formerly part of the Federation and then some together again. Yeah. Which is why I'm really kind of optimistic that season 5 is going to take that route. And when we get season 5, I'm sure I'll be eating these words because it'll be something completely different. But they have the opportunity for us to follow the crew of Discovery through them actually reforming the Federation and Starfleet. And they're kind of setting that up with Tilly leaving the actual ship and going to Starfleet Academy, and it made sense for her person out of time to go there.
That is definitely something I want us to talk about because I just wanted to say one thing really quick before we jump to Tilly. They keep hinting at this idea that the Federation had become somewhat corrupt and somewhat like disjointed even before the burn. I want them to go there because I feel like that's the thing. Like they need to show that even something as great as the Federation can like fall apart because of selfishness and everything else. I want them to really explore that, because there's a lot of these races that are just like, we don't trust the Federation, like they dealt with us badly and stuff. And it's like, yeah, go there, because then this idea of this ship coming from the past when the Federation was more like the idealistic like place that they, you know, that they're supposed to be.
It makes a lot more sense.
Right, exactly. That they can be like, yeah, like we come from experience of that, of showing like, yeah, this is the way that things need to work, and we can't, you know, we got to be completely open and above board and everything else. And so I really,
and this is a topic that you and I at least have discussed on probably every Star Trek show we've done together, because every Trek, even TOS, has hinted at the corruptness in Starfleet, especially with admirals, which is why, you know, Kirk and Picard never made it as admirals, because they weren't that corrupted, or at least corruptible. So yeah, it's something that has always been hiding in the shadows of Star Trek, even when people claim that, oh, it wasn't in Roddenberry's vision. He was one of the ones writing these corrupted admirals. And I would love to see that. And actually, for a brief moment in season, we're on 4, right? Four of Discovery. For a brief moment, my eyes got really wide, and I was excited thinking they were going to do that when they showed the back of that scientist's neck. And I'm like, oh, are they finally bringing those alien thingies?
The evil trill.
You had the same idea I did. I was like, it's the spider aliens. They're back.
Yeah.
I was like,
the evil trill. Yeah.
Finally. and then in like 30 seconds, my hopes got shot down, and it was just the mark of the slave band he was wearing. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, it was so funny. All right, I do want to say this. It was so funny, all the things that could have been touchstones to references, and the fans jumped on them that like didn't, because like, you know, a lot of people talked about the fact that it was that sort of swirly pattern to the thing. They talked about the planet killers from the original series. You know, there was the scar on the back of the neck that I thought might be a reference to what Ryan's calling the evil trill. And then there's the fact that it was, then they said like, oh, this is coming from outside the galaxy, and I was like, ooh, is it the Andromedans? Because like that's something they haven't dealt with, you know, since the original series, and that would be interesting. And frankly, all right, well, no, actually, I'm going to save that one because that can be a separate topic. But let's talk about Tilly, because I think we all talked in the last season about the fact that Tilly becoming first officer like made no sense. Like when she goes from ensign to like, I'm just going to jump ahead of everybody and I'm Saru's first officer. And it was just kind of like, you know, I love Saru. And other than that, I've always liked every decision that Saru makes. But that decision was just like, no, like that's too much. I really, like you were just saying, Stephanie, I really like what they did with Tilly in this season. I was surprised they wrote her out of the show. I'm guessing it was Mary Wiseman's decision because she's so popular. I'm sure they didn't force her out. I'm sure it was just she was getting tired of it or something. Although the other side of it is Tilly's supposed to be this young like person just out of being a cadet. And you can tell that Mary Wiseman, you know, is starting to get a little bit up there in years, you know, and it's kind of hard for her to pretend that she's like in her early 20s. And so I don't know if that factored into her decision, but yeah, I was surprised they wrote her out. But that episode where she's guiding the cadets, I thought was a really good showcase of Tilly's strengths as a character and like all the development she's had over the last 4 years, you know, and that, oh yeah, she's the people person. She's the one that can bring people together. She's very optimistic and can keep people from panicking in a horrible situation and all that kind of stuff. And I thought that worked really well. So any other thoughts about it, Stephanie?
I mean, I definitely hope that Tilly isn't gone for good because I love Tilly. And if they are setting that up, like, I don't know if I'm giving these writers too much credit that they're trying to set up for something for next season with having Tilly go to the academy. But I'm hoping that's there as a little tease that is going to be part of what they're going to focus on is rebuilding Starfleet. Because that's without just suddenly pulling her out and putting her back on Discovery. That's the only way I can imagine her staying there. is being that link back to headquarters and to Starfleet growing again. And as far as I've heard, I haven't seen anything that she's off for good. So I'm assuming that we're going to see more of her helping shape the new Federation and the new Starfleet with her new role at the Academy. And that's part of why I'm hoping that Discovery is going to be shifting towards this new route of discovery with the new Federation and new Starfleet. And maybe that's going beyond the galaxy. Maybe that's just discovering what has happened within the last 900 years to cause all the distrust amongst the different species of the Federation. I mean, as fun as I think it could be to have some stuff going outside of the galaxy, I feel like that would work better in an episodic thing than in the serialized format that Discovery has. And truthfully, I do want to see more of Navarre, more of the Federation, more of, come on, acknowledge the fact that admirals are always evil and we finally seem to have a good admiral. So, yeah, and Tilly seems to be a good clue that might be a route that they're going to take. Yeah. And I love Tilly, so I just really don't want her gone.
Yeah, I mean, and it's possible that she might not come back full time, but they might put her in like a few episodes and have her guest like they did at the end. She was there in the finale with everybody. But yeah, I think the showrunners will probably, if Mary Wiseman wants to do it, they'll put her in as many episodes because I believe she is definitely the character that is most popular because she's the one I definitely see people talking up all the time on commentaries about Discovery. What do you think about what they did with Tilly this season, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, I really think that from the beginning, Tilly was our eyes into the show. For the fans' eyes into the show. She was, our stand-in. I've had so many thoughts from what's been said. I do feel like I do like the idea of Tilly being at the Academy because as we were saying earlier, there's been this line of corruption that's been through Starfleet and the Federation, and Tilly is that ray of optimism, that chance to maybe restore at the Foundation, at Starfleet. I mean, where are bad admirals made? They're clearly made at Starfleet. So it's a chance to kind of redeem that. And quick side note, I actually, to that whole corruption in Starfleet, corruption in the Federation, I think we're seeing the genesis of it, or at least of the trueness of it in Picard, in the current seasons of Picard. But getting back to Tilly, yeah, I mean, I have this theory that Discovery's greatest strength isn't as a show unto itself, but as a pilot incubator. I mean, season 1 was all about Discovery. Season 2 was about Strange New World. Season 3 was Giorgio and setting up Section 31. And they haven't said exactly where, but there are rumors going around that the Starfleet Academy series might be set in the Discovery era, and maybe they'll incorporate her there into that series. And then that would make
sense because then they still have her as a regular, but in a different show. Yeah,
and It would also explain why she hasn't been said to be gone. If she is off of Discovery, she's still in.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm worried about Section 31 because Michelle Yeoh has become suddenly the hottest actress in Hollywood, and deservedly so. I mean, I'm not casting any like she's awesome and amazing. It's just too bad that COVID kept them from moving forward on Section 31 before Everything Everywhere All at Once came out. So they could at least get a season out of that before that. And now it's like, I don't know if her schedule is going to allow her to do television anymore because I'm sure everybody is going to be after her, too.
Well, that's one of the benefits of doing only 10 episodes a season. It's probably easy to work around people's schedules. And if she can be 2 characters in Marvel, she can be, in Star Trek as well. At least I don't know. I could be clearly projecting, but my feel for her is that she loves this stuff. And that she would totally do. I mean, I don't know if you will know this when you watch Strange New Worlds, but she's in new ads for Starfleet Fleet or whatever it's called, the game, the online game. Yeah, she's in, I don't know if you've seen any of the ads, they've had Riker, Geordi, Data, and
yeah, I've
now
seen
they've
those
got
ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a new version that's got Burnham, Rainn Wilson as Harry Mudd, and Michelle Yeoh all in it
very
as well.
nice. Because
so,
I mean, yeah, she clearly likes it, and she was clearly excited about helming a series, because she would be the star. Because the only other person they were going to bring in that was established was Shazad Latif, I believe his
that
name
guy.
is. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember his character's names.
Was it Tyler?
Yeah, I think it was Tyler.
Yeah. It was really Voke, the Klingon, but it had been surgically altered. But yeah, I had the memories like he was Tyler. Yeah. And so, yeah, like he was going to be in that show too. But it's definitely like Michelle Yeoh is the big name, right? That was going to be what they were built Section 31 around.
This really, I want to say something, but I can't say it because it's spoiling for Strange New Worlds. But I feel like, yeah, I mean, since season 3 sent Giorgio back in time, they could have sent her back to where Tyler is or somewhere around there. So they could do a Section 31 around then. And in Strange New Worlds, there's another possible tie-in, which I can't speak of without spoiling.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I feel like they're setting it up that assuming they can get her, there's a way to make it work. So yeah, but getting back to Tilly, yeah, I mean, I feel like this is how this entire podcast is going to be. By the way,
well, I mean, but Star Trek. I mean, if it's Star Trek, at least it's on topic because all these things do connect together. Yeah,
yeah,
that's true. It's all connected.
Right.
But yeah, I feel like, but that the one episode where Tilly was leading the cadets, if that's going to be the Starfleet Academy series, I'm there for it, and I feel like that was her shining moment. This season, and if you kind of have to like go out, that's the episode to go out on that. That, and of course, anything with her and Vance. For some reason, I love the chemistry of those two together. And they're I'm more like at the very end, Tilly and Vance are the last two trying to protect Earth, right? Or is that season? Yeah. So that's Tilly for me. She's a hero. And
like I said,
although if they bring her back to Discovery in season 5, to be fair, since everyone gets a chance, it's her turn to be captain.
But like I was saying though, her and Vance, we finally do have a good admiral. So with the two of them, we're either going to see Starfleet becoming a good Starfleet again, or we're going to see what it is that corrupts characters, and we're going to get Killy and Vance.
Oh, I miss Killy. I'll cut your tongue off and lick my boot with it or something like that. Just like, I love the stuff she was coming up with. So Brian brought it up. We've got the musical chair that is the captain's seat. So Burnham this year got to be captain of the Discovery. So thoughts on Burnham as captain? Do you think that works? Do you think they should keep Burnham as the captain? Do you think Saru should come back in as the captain? Like how do you feel about that whole dynamic? Because they said Saru's assignment on Discovery was just temporary in this season. So what do you think about moving forward and the sort of like hierarchy on the Discovery? So Stephanie, let's start with you on this.
Co-captain, basically. And after just watching The Boys, co-captain is just anyways, I don't know. I mean, like, I still feel they did dirty to Saru because he was a great captain. And it was also awesome finally having the captain of the main show, or of the main ship of the show, being not human. But at the same time, I'm all for having another woman captain in the lead. But yeah, they just set up so many difficulties with the captain position on Discovery because we've gone through so many of them, and it has been a different one every season, hasn't it? Giorgio, then
Lorca.
What's his face from the alternate dimension? Lorca. Then we had Pike. Then we had Saru. Then we had Burnham. So yeah, it's been 4 seasons and we've had 5 captains. Or wait, no, Giorgio never was of.
Well, yeah, not out of Discovery. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, 4 seasons, 4 captains.
Out of Discovery.
Yeah. So it has been kind of crazy that keeps changing, and I still feel like Saru was done dirty, but at the same time, you can't get Burnham out without doing her dirty. So I don't know what I want there. I don't want Saru to leave because seriously, my favorites on the show are Tilly, Saru, and Reno. And so unless they're going to somehow throw Reno in the captain's chair, I don't. I have no idea what I want for captain because they've already done dirty to one of them, but in order to get him back, you got to do dirty to another one. And yeah, I'm just going to be talking in a circle here.
Oh, yeah. Reno, I still loved my idea back when, when the doctor was dead and they picked up Reno, and I thought because she had been trying to save that guy with engineering, I was like, oh god, she's gonna be like the doctor on the ship now, and she's gonna be like it's gonna be like a house of horrors as she just like cobbles together things to like, you know, help people. And it's just gonna be like, that would be so funny. But no, I absolutely adore her. She is one of the best things about the show, and she only ever does like half the episodes in the season, and I'm always like, yeah, more Reno.
Yes, more Reno. Make her the captain just so we see her more.
Right. Yeah. So Ryan, what do you think about Burnham as a captain and sort of like how they're, you know, the hierarchy of the ship and all that?
My feeling on the matter is Burnham needs to remain captain just because the show needs consistency.
Yeah.
It needs. I feel like. I feel like this is the direction that it was heading, like from the beginning. Like they knew she was, Sonequa was the star, the main character, and so they knew they were going. It was the journey to making her captain, and so to that extent, I'm fine with it. But I feel like as her freshman run, as the official captain, not just in charge, that she made a lot of decisions which I agree with, and a lot that I didn't. But the thing is, it almost always works out for her. One of the criticisms that I've seen, you know, again, like I was saying earlier, I've been in a lot of Strange New Worlds forums and arguments, and there are a lot of people saying Strange New Worlds is the best, Discovery sucks, and like literally we're just talking about who they cast as a character. But but like one of the things they'll say is like, you know, Burnham gets away with everything, and I'm like, well, no, she went to prison. You know, I mean, there have been consequences to her actions. And I do feel like, to that extent, that they explored. Every decision she's made, good or bad, there have been consequences to it. I just feel like the consequences. It just feels like she gets a reboot, kind of, at the end of it. It's like, yeah, this happened to you, and you had an emotional damage over it. Book lost the planet, whatever. But you know, you've learned, so let's move on and incorporate it. And I feel like she does a pretty good job of that. Like she makes mistakes, but it doesn't seem like she makes the same ones over and over again. So it's just like, you don't want a learning curve when you're the captain of a starship. You know, people tend to die that way. But I guess I just feel like it's got to be here just to finally keep it consistent. And honestly, with the exception of Saru, I don't see anyone that could do it better. I do think Saru was a better captain. I do think I would have loved for him to have stayed on. But now that we're here, I feel like we have to stay here just because.
Yeah, it's the same thing for me. And I kind of expected that eventually Burnham would be captain. I feel like we should have had some time with her as first officer under Saru.
Yeah.
Like after the whole thing of when she, you know, last season, you know, again, justifiably after a season on her own was having a hard time readjusting and, but once she got through all of that and was incorporated back into Starfleet, instead of making her captain, it's like, here, not only did you, have issues, we had to kick you out, but come back with a promotion. You know, I would have liked it as, okay, you can come back, you can be Saru's first officer and have some time as that. And I feel like that would have been, I would have felt a lot better about that, with the show. But I think also though I think there is political pressure behind the scenes of, hey, we've had a female captain before, we've had a person of color be a captain, but we've never had a female person of color be a captain. So this is a thing that we can do to, like, you know, again, show representation and everything. And so I think that might have factored into the decision a little bit too, to sort of like push that forward, so that it became quicker than might seem, you know, justified by her actions.
Organic.
I'm sorry, say again?
Oh, just it's quicker than seems organic. It doesn't feel like it happened organic.
And I understand that. And I've seen way too many comments from people about like how much that means to them and stuff like that for it to be discounted as a reason to do it. It's just, yeah, I wish it had taken a little bit longer, because I think that would have felt more organic, like you were saying, Ryan. But I definitely expected that to be the trajectory of the show. I felt like, you know, from the beginning, I kind of expected
episode 1.
Right. If this show continues, that's what they want to do with her character. But yeah, I have mixed feelings about it this season, especially with all the difficulties with Book and what Book was doing and her response to it. Because on the one hand, I get that, like, you're a human being and you're going to have feelings and you're very close to this person. And at the same time, though, it really seemed like, as emotionally compromised as she was, that it seemed like other, you know, this shouldn't be her being the one that's chasing after Book. It should be other people like leading that charge. That's not kind of, I mean, that's also kind of Starfleet's fault, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, that did get a little old to me, was the whole, like,
I mean, wasn't that part of
wishy-washiness.
the reason why wasn't that part of the reason why they made sure Saru was staying with, though?
Yeah.
Was to kind of keep her in check because of her emotional connection to Book?
Yeah, no, I think that was part of it. But again, it was, I don't know. It just, I would have liked this season to have been structured a little bit different. And I don't know exactly how I would have wanted that. But like, I feel like there was a little too much of a spotlight on the whole, I love you, but I also have to take you in, and I love you, but I've got to do this, you know, on either side of the, you know, like, there's this, I've got to have revenge for my planet, even though I love you, you know, like, and then her being like, I have to take you in, but I love you. And that got a little bit too much for me. I would have liked, I don't know. And believe me, I'm not saying that what they did with Book was something that I can't see happening to somebody, because that is a hugely traumatic event.
Oh, definitely.
It was just the whole thing with him and Burnham with that. I just kind of felt like got a little too much, and I wanted it to be maybe a little more straightforward and less of that sort of, I don't know. I guess I wanted Burnham either to be more like a Picard and be a little more stoic, or for them to put somebody else in charge of it.
I mean, to their credit, I will say that they and I thought this was pretty smart, because I think we mentioned this before in our season 3 recap, that they should have integrated at season 3. The Discovery crew should have been integrated with Starfleet members from the current timeline, the current point in time. Like, really, kept Saru as a captain, but give him a first officer from, you know, that era, so that they know what's going on. But that's got really nothing to do with this. But to their credit, Admiral Vance or someone in Starfleet, maybe it's President Trina or whatever, understood that Burnham was compromised. So I love that they brought back I'm blanking on her name, but
that's right,
the Pike security, the security chief of the
no
security officer,
special,
basically saying, hey, the apparatus, basically saying,
that's
hey, if Burnham cannot make the difficult decision, if Burnham can't make the difficult decision, you do it for her. And I thought that's realistic. That's a pretty good balance. So I would give them credit for at least thinking of doing that.
I completely forgot about that. You have a excellent point there. I was happy to see that she came back as well. So,
and
the joys of so much time passing.
I know. But like, how did you feel about the whole storyline for the scientists also, and the sort of, because when I finally found out the whole backstory, and it was so totally just a thing of, you know, you just have this sort of wish, but there's no actual basis in fact that you will be united with this person in this place that may not exist, and pretty sure the person was already dead, and so I don't think there's any, like, they don't exist there anyway, and like, I don't know, there's a perfect reality somewhere where everything is just beautiful and wonderful and nice. I was kind of disappointed that there was no basis even to like support what he was trying to do, but yet he was so determined and committed. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't Magic Kelpian bad, because I leaned over to Beth when they started going into the anomaly, and I said, if there is a Magic Kelpian at the center of this, we're going to stop watching.
I mean, I understood the story that they set up for him. It was basically him not recovering from a traumatic thing. He had guilt and delusions and all of this stuff. And so he was just determined to get to that place that he and somebody very, very dear to him had promised to be together. Damn everybody else. I'm going for the person I love. And if the universe is destroyed because of that, so be it. At least I'll be with them again. It was not rational. It was not realistic or logical, but it was realistic in the sense of that was his trauma, and his way of dealing with it was to just do it, everything else be damned. So it wasn't particularly my favorite ambition for any villain, so to speak. But yeah, it's definitely better than the Magic Kelpian. At least to me, it was believable that he was forsaking everything just to get back to his love and to try and abolish his guilt over what had happened. And just he took Book down with him, unfortunately. And personally, I think it would have been better if it was the evil Trill, but I am just going to be salty about the evil Trill until they finally come back in the show.
I have been waiting for so many years.
Yes, me too.
Ryan,
pretty much my whole life.
What do you think about, and I again, I'm blanking on the name of the scientist character in this series, and sort of his motivations for, wanting the power source so that he could do the transporter to the perfect reality.
Tarka. Is his name. I liked him. I'm gonna defend him a little, or at least I liked his character, because in the beginning, he reminded me of what Stamets was in the beginning. Mm-hmm. All arrogance, all science, all I'm smarter than you, deal with it. Mm-hmm. And I even liked how he put Stamets in his place a couple of times. He's like, oh yeah, that's cute. You think you're smart, here, I fix this for you, And typically in small doses, I like those characters. Rodney McKay, I like those types of characters. And I liked it. And plus I followed that actor's career for a little while, so it was good to see him. And then when you realize he had an ulterior motive, and I guess I was. The only problem that I had with it is it felt recycled Soren from Star Trek Generations.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to get to this perfect place. And, this if I have to burn the world, solar systems down to do it, I will. Mm. So, and again, this goes back to the evil Trill and everything. And this goes back to having writers who are not originally fans of Star Trek, because they come up with these ideas and they think, hey, this is totally original. They don't understand you've got 60 years worth of stuff, and you're. Mm-hmm.
But here's the difference, though. Soren had actually been in the Nexus, so he actually had some justification. This is like, he told me that there's this perfect reality somewhere. I have no basis for any belief in it other than that I was told that it must exist, and so therefore I'm going to go there. And it's just like, yeah, okay, like. I'm just going to take the magic transporter to go to the magic place.
I like the character as well, especially when he is putting Stamets in place. Like, oh, that's cute. Remember, you're from 900 years ago.
No, in the beginning, I liked the character. I just felt like as we learned more, because I felt like there's going to be something where he's had proof that this place existed, or
Yeah.
there's going to be. But when they showed the whole backstory, it was like, oh, really? That's what this is. Like,
Well,
you're
this
supposed
is
to be a
what-
scientist.
This is what Discovery does. It sets up these things, and it never quite sticks the landing. It comes close, but it never quite pays off the way you want to. And that's what it did with Tarka. But I mean, the thing of it is with great. I mean, when we see this in real life, with super great genius and intelligence, you typically get a little bit of crazy as well.
That's true.
And so, I don't know. I guess it's really hard to hate a motivation that is basically just I want to be with the people that I love. Yeah. So it's like, you're wrong, but I get it, and that's kind of how I felt about Tarka.
Yeah,
That's what I was trying to convey too. That I got it. It wasn't an unbelievable motivation.
Yeah. Oh, the motivation was fine. If there was proof that the guy that he loved was alive and in this other place, I would have been like, that's totally fine. Like, I get the motivation. It's horrible that he's willing to sacrifice like everybody else, but at least I get the motivation. But it's like there's no evidence.
I think the lack of evidence just hardens, establishes even greater how much trauma he experienced from it.
Yeah.
I mean, he keeps going back to the place. He keeps reliving in that time. And the fact that he's willing to do all of this, it just shows how much trauma he had buried within him from that whole experience. And it does kind of drive in how important mental health is, because people might be willing to destroy the universe as we know it.
Yeah.
Just from unrelieved issues or unresolved issues.
But the thing also, what was beautiful about this, this is kind of one of the good things about episodic television, is you can see the progression, because like Tarka in the beginning, Tarka in episode 1 and Tarka in episode 13 or 12 or whatever it is, were not the same person. Like if you told Tarka in episode 1, hey, you are going to destroy planets and you're going to be cool with millions dying to get you there, Tarka in episode 1 would be like, no, I would never do that. I'm not that type of person. But first you let one person die or one, and then it's like you have to justify it. And it's like, I've done all these bad things. It has to mean something. So you do more bad things, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. And you believe it's going to be worth it in the end. And I felt like they did a good job of that with him.
Does anyone else feel like they need a counselor on the ship instead of having Culper be both chief medical officer and counselor? Because that was a bit much. And I know that they talked about it, like that it's too much and everything on the show. But it's like, I just was like, I cannot believe that they also expect him to be like everybody's therapist on top of being the one that has to do all the
especially
medical
when
stuff.
he's like meeting with a therapist himself. You'd think that Starfleet would be like, okay, maybe we need another specialist on board.
Yeah, because I at least appreciated that with Book, they tried to do therapy was a thing that Book was trying to do and everything, I thought that was nice that they put that in the show, and they said huge trauma like this doesn't matter if you're living in the 30th century or whatever, you need to have some sort of outlet, some sort of way of talking it over and stuff like that. So I thought that was pretty positive, even though of course with Book it didn't help ultimately, because he did end up going on his feelings of revenge and everything. But I appreciated the fact, though, at least with Book, at least I hope with Book, there are consequences. If he comes back at the beginning of season 5 and it's like, oh, yep, good behavior. I'm, nothing that I did mattered, I'm back with you guys, it'll be a problem. But if this really is like Book's gone now for at least a season, I feel like, that's showing, that there's some consequence for, what he did, regardless of, whatever, reforming he's done, or change.
Grudge is still with Burnham though, right? Or did Grudge go with him?
I'm trying to remember.
Well, it's Starfleet, so they asked Grudge where he wanted to go.
She.
Yeah,
she's a queen.
She remembers she's a queen.
She's a queen. Oh, that's true.
Yeah, I forget whether he took the cat. I think he did take the cat with him.
Gosh.
But
I can't remember.
Yeah,
Because I'm on Grudge still.
No. Maybe Burnham will get her own cat because she misses Grudge. But all right, so like we get outside the galaxy, we encounter this new alien race. I've got to say, this is another one of those places where I was really, really excited and really happy, and then kind of felt like a little disappointed, because in the beginning they did such a good job. How do you communicate with a truly alien culture? And we had this wonderful episode of them trying to like decode and figure out, and the aliens trying to help and all that kind of stuff, where it's like this kind of makes sense. You can kind of see like everything joined together. And then suddenly they go from like barely being able to do like a word to let's do complex thoughts and sentences like that. And I was just like, no, you were doing so well. You were doing so well. You don't I don't know. And so just on that aspect, just on the communication aspect, before we talk a little bit more about this situation, what do you think about that, Ryan?
Well, I mean, I feel like this is where I follow you. It's just, if it was that, fine, we're going to spend an episode figuring out how to communicate with them, and then bam, here's Encyclopedia Britannica for you guys. And I think this also goes to they set up in, what was it, season 2, the sphere and Zora, and how super powerful this computer was, and then it's basically useless to help communicate with these beings until it wasn't. Until suddenly Zora can, we can exchange complex abstract ideas. And I also feel like they underutilized. I can't remember the character's name, but they brought in that, I think he's like a linguistic anthropologist or something like that, to help them, learn about species tendency and translate and everything. And I love that actor. He's been in a whole bunch of stuff as well. Got to be a Vancouver native or something like that.
But he did nothing.
But he did nothing except make some, smart ass remarks. But yeah, I just felt like they could have explored that more. It was a good premise, and it is a good premise, but I also understand that they've got to wrap it up. They've got to come to a conclusion. And so, yeah, here we are. We've learned to communicate with them. Problem solved. And honestly, that is the best of Star Trek. That is in the spirit of Star Trek. Hey, we've got a conflict. The problem isn't that we're so different. The problem is we just don't know how to communicate, and now we're going to learn. I mean, you had that with the Gorn, you had that with the Tamarians, and now you have that here with species tendency.
I'm not disagreeing with the fact that for them to be able to communicate in some way needs to be the way that they kind of solve the problem. But I felt like it should have been with what little, like by their actions / by what little they can communicate, would have been like better than just suddenly being like, now we can like give you like every like a whole paragraph of information is just fine. I don't know. I just would have felt like it should have still been like hesitantly working towards having like big speeches and whatnot, like not like instantly.
Picard came back to the Enterprise very competently telling the Tamarians what happened.
Yeah.
And he like all of a sudden knew all of the different idioms and everything, all the different metaphors.
He spent a whole day with that guy.
So, yeah, I mean, it's not really that far from suspension of belief that we've already established with Star Trek. And Darmok is considered one of the greatest episodes of Star Trek ever. And I really felt like that was kind of in the same spirit of it, where they learned that in the case of this species, it's emotion and mathematics that makes up the language. Tim was really annoyed that it was all emotions and stuff like that. And I'm like, boy, can you be any more stereotypical man there?
Well, no. I mean, it was the chemicals that they released, but they were linked to emotions. So like,
exactly.
Yeah. And I thought that was actually very interesting to try to do an alien form of communication, by scent, basically. And I liked that. I thought that was a really neat thing.
So I thought it was an interesting way. It was just the matter of Sora basically didn't know what the basis was. And when they went to that planet and they discovered that it was the pheromones of the emotion, the emotional connection, it kind of made sense that once they had that data of the fact that it is linked to mathematics and linked to the emotional pheromones, that they were able to establish a way to communicate more complex thoughts. Now, I still do think they went really like, wow, they got a lot of nuance in there, but I do think that it's believable in the universe that we already know that this supercomputer was able to extrapolate that much data to efficiently communicate. And I mean, I love the Darmok episode, but
right. But again, all that
more
Picard
likely
was
that this computer would be able to do that competent of communication than I think Picard could, in just going and spouting out about Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra when the walls fell.
Right. All that Picard needed to convey is, I became friends with this dude and he died. That's all that Picard had to convey. And those are two fairly simple concepts. But to, like, he wasn't negotiating a treaty with them. Like, he wasn't at the point where he was just like, you know, making speeches and negotiating treaties and things like that. So it was a little bit different, I feel like.
But it's where Picard was concerned, he was already operating on the basis that the Tamarians recognized humans exist, or people were people.
Right.
The species 10C didn't even, I mean, Discovery's mission wasn't to, I mean, ideally, eventually to negotiate some sort of treaty or set up diplomatic relations.
Right.
But their primary goal is to say, hey, we exist, we're sentient beings, and your mining operations are killing us. And so, you know, that was the baseline that they were going for. And we can, I mean, again, I think it just comes down to suspension of disbelief, because we're already accepting, one, that beings with this sort of level of technology, you know, that can create wormholes and so forth, need to mine, you know, for a particular element, which is already, you know, okay, sure, why not? And two, and two, that Starfleet's spacesuits will only filter out recognize hydrocarbons and not all hydrocarbons. You know, I mean, it's like, honestly, your spacesuit should be like, hey, I don't recognize this, I'm going to keep it out of the system. It shouldn't just be, I'm only going to keep out the ones that I know. I mean, that's not exactly how immune systems work at all. So whoever designed their space,
that doesn't even like really matter for how like sealing works. Like if you're sealing something like and it's airtight, like none of those hydrocarbons should be getting through. So
that's true. You know,
that was one of my problems with this too. I mean, there were just so many things where I was like, neat ideas, but like they don't really work when you think about them.
And that's like Discovery as a whole,
right?
Yeah.
So ultimately, though, are you satisfied with the fact that they just needed to talk to species 10C? I'll just start with this one, because like I felt like Discovery's point, like every season, it has been something like, oh, we think there's actually a big bad, but there really isn't. Or even with the thing where we have a problem with the Klingons, the thing was, you know, we've got to just trust that things will work out okay, and we can't do the thing we were going to do, or we got to go to the future so we don't have to actually fight this techno-organic thing, or, you know, magic Kelpian is the reason for the burn. Like, I feel like just once I want it to be an actual enemy, like something that we can fight, and like we can actually have like the action set piece be like the end of the season. Because I feel like we've done enough of that, talking or discovering that there was something we didn't know and that's the problem, or, you know, some of these other things. Because like in the end, when it was just like, hey, let's talk to you guys, and then we can totally diffuse this situation, I just felt kind of let down at the end of the season, because I thought this time we really actually were going to have like something where like these guys don't care. Like, I didn't think it was going to be like war in the sense of we want your territory, but just like the species was going to be like, we're so advanced, you're like ants to us, you know, like we don't care if we're like, you know, stopping your stuff, you know, like, because you don't matter from our perspective. But when they revealed that the aliens both A, knew they existed, and just B, like just didn't think that they mattered, I didn't buy that they were then able to like talk them into it. It would have been better, I think, if the species had just been like, oh, we didn't realize that life could exist within the galaxy. We thought that it was like, just like, you know, minerals and stuff in there. And so that's why we did this. If they wanted to do like a talking, like, kind of solution. I don't know. But did that work for you, Stephanie?
I mean, I hadn't remembered the whole fact that they were aware of life being there and they just thought of it no more as ants. But
well, they said like we didn't think that there was
time,
intelligence in the life in there. Yeah.
But what I was getting at was how many ant colonies I have destroyed just working on my garden. So I kind of suddenly an ant started talking to me. I'd be like, oh, well, can you just move so I can finish this part and then you're welcome to come back? And like as soon as I got to the nursery planet, I knew it was going to be as simple as they just needed to prove that they were more than ants and they would stop. At least once they were able to convey the fact that, you know, hey, we're here and you're also killing us. Because it kind of seemed, if my memory is correct, that they weren't entirely aware of the scope of damage they were doing. Not only the fact that there were life that they just didn't recognize as full life. But again, it's been a while since I watched it, so my memory could be faulty there. But yeah, I mean, it was fine for me. I'm now suddenly feeling like a horrible person for working in my garden. So, hey, there have been plenty of times where I have, even spiders, I have moved them so that I could keep working, but they wanted to interfere me, and I hate spiders, but I've scooped them up in my shovel and moved them to the other side of the yard and been like, you can come back when I'm done. But ant colonies, it's a little harder when you're suddenly running through with your tiller and you don't realize that it's even there until the tiller has turned it up, and suddenly you just see ants everywhere and you're like, oh, well, I just destroyed an entire civilization there. At least now I'm thinking that way. Thanks, Nathan.
Well, Ryan, as our resident Ant-Man, what do you think about all of this?
Okay, so having done a lot of research with ants.
Actually, hold on a minute, because I just put two thoughts together. Ants communicate with scent, don't they?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Yeah, they do.
They communicate chemically. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I just thought it was interesting because we're talking about
when you see their antennas touching.
Right. Chemical communications. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I've been listening to all this and just cracking myself up. Because I have created artificial ant colonies. I've subjected ants to what would arguably be torture for the purposes of research. I've even taken fingernail polish and painted individual ants so I can differentiate between them.
Oh wow!
And I've created artificial wars between ants. So I mean, I can't really, like, from a moral standpoint say, I mean, this was all done to increase knowledge of, species and eusociality and so forth. But basically, just for what it's worth, as long as you're not killing the queen, they'll be fine.
Yeah, you're making me feel a lot better with running my tiller through colonies here when you've created artificial wars.
That colony is probably deeper than your tiller can reach.
Oh, I'm sure.
The queen's probably fine.
Yeah. I mean, it's a superorganism. Basically, what you're doing is, like, you're every time you're killing 100 ants, you're it's a surface layer. You maybe at most you're amputating a pinky, but you're not even doing it. You're pulling a fingernail. That's what you're doing. You're pulling a fingernail, out of the superorganism, which hurts.
Well,
it's not fun, but they'll survive. Yeah.
I feel better now. Thank you.
Welcome.
But yeah. So what do you think about how it resolved, Ryan? Yeah.
I mean, I honestly, and I mentioned this before, I actually feel like the resolution was as Star Trek as you can get. But to your point about there needing to be a big baddie, again, I while acknowledging that Discovery has a problem with the problem with Discovery is, and I say this liking the show, but the problem with Discovery is they're not as smart as they think they are. The writers and so forth.
I agree.
Yeah. But in season 3 and actually in in seasons 2, 3, and 4, they do a good job of setting up this huge, omnipotent, faceless baddie, species 10C, but then having a personal, in-your-face baddie, Tarka. And in season 3, it was the Orion gang leader, whose name I'm forgetting. So, they do a fairly good job of establishing a personal level bad guy villain.
I know. It's
so
just I feel
problem.
like variety-wise, just because we keep doing this, like it would be nice to have a group, a powerful threat actually be bad and not just be like the individual be the bad. I don't know. I just feel like I just want like the season to lead to there is actually an enemy out there for, the Federation or something. Not
you have the Orion Syndicate.
Yeah, I know. They did like a little battle between two ships. I don't know.
Be careful what you wish for, Nathan. This is how we ended up with the Borg in Enterprise.
Oh yeah, I know. I just want something bigger. I want there to be like a big threat, not like a little threat.
This goes back to what we were saying earlier about like just exploring the galaxy that they already exist. But it seems to me that the moment dilithium crystals started working, eventually another species was going to discover the spore drive because they're looking for alternate ways to travel. So yeah, I theoretically speaking, I wouldn't be at all surprised if like the Dominion shows up or could show up, with spore
that'd be
drives.
awesome.
That would be, yeah, exactly.
It's clear to me
even
that
if
the
it
writers
is reusing one.
It's clear to me that somebody on the show at least is a DS9 fan because they keep referencing DS9. We saw something from Morn's Race. We've had a changeling in this season. We've had several references to DS9 things. And so I think that we do have a DS9 fan somewhere in there. But yes, I would love to have the Dominion show back up as an actual threat, or maybe the Kazon have finally gotten their act together and like are actually have like some sort of civilization now instead of just being wandering thugs or something. I don't know, just a new thing. Like something like to me. But see, here's the thing. A threat from outside the galaxy, if it was a real threat and not just a misunderstanding, would have been a cool way of creating the impetus behind this is why we need a federation. This is why we need our worlds to come together, because there is something out there that wants to wipe us all out. And I was thinking that's how they were going to tie the thoughts together of, like the galaxy needs to, because it's not just like the old Federation, but hey, galaxy, we need to come together because there are galaxies out there that are targeting us, as a whole. And if we're apart, we don't stand a chance of like fighting off this threat with like such high technology and everything. I wanted it to be something like that, and that's not what I got.
Them going into that other galaxy though could have potentially alerted some other species other than 10C that hey, there's stuff out here.
Right.
Because there's a reason why 10C was
Killer
enclosed in its Dyson sphere. So
yeah, I did appreciate the fact that they did, because obviously the astronomy in old sci-fi is really bad, but they kind of showed that, even outside the galaxy, there are stars. They're few and far between, but there are stars outside the galaxy. And so that's what I thought they were going to establish, was that this species, because it had developed an environment where there were so few stars that when they learned to explore space, they didn't find any other life. And so they just assumed that they were the only life form in the universe. And so that's why they had sent their mining stuff into the galaxy, was they just assumed that there was no life anywhere else. And they didn't think they were harming anyone. But instead, they established they did know there was life. They just didn't think it was intelligent. And I was like, they also missed the boat that way, because I would have bought that far more. That it's just like, oh, like there are things living there. Oh, we're sorry, man. We didn't know.
That maybe it's because of their size, but another big difference between the 10C and pretty much every sentient spacefaring species we've seen in Star Trek is the complete lack of a desire for expansion. The 10C are fine exactly where they are. They don't want to go. They don't want to colonize or anything like that. They're not like the Borg. They don't want to, add your distinctiveness to their own. They're not like, Cardassians or Romulans. So that's kind of an odd concept as well. I think you almost, to make a species as a threat, there has to be a competition for resources, a competition for something. So with the 10C, you don't really have that factor.
Right. Like I say, I don't have a problem with the 10C per se. I just feel like in Discovery now, I just really want there to be like a big bad of some kind.
Yeah, I get it.
Just for the show, just for the variety of I like the fact that diplomacy has been front and center with Discovery, but even with Picard, like the diplomat, du jour of the Federation that tried to solve every problem with talking, he sometimes had to, go phasers blazing because that was the only way out of certain situations. It wasn't, we got variety with that. Of course, they had more episodes per season.
The dilemma, though, the reason I'm glad they're not doing that is because with Discovery, with their need to fix it, to solve it, I mean, they would create or reintroduce, like I said, say that suddenly the Kazon show up and for whatever reason they look like the Klingons. From TNG, but they're the Kazon. But anyways, the problem is, like, older episodic Trek could establish these villains and they could exist over seasons, over series. The Romulans have been a threat, for multiple series. The Cardassians, even the Klingons at times. But Discovery would introduce them, and then by the end of the season, they would be incorporated and somehow into the new Federation. So yeah, that would be.
Well, I'm thinking more like, okay, so if the planet killer had come from outside the galaxy or the star, whatever we call the anomaly, I forget what they came up with an acronym for it. But it comes from outside the galaxy, and they end up getting rid of it, and then they're like, we don't know when another one will come. Like, it didn't happen that way, obviously, because they were able to send another one in right away and all that kind of stuff. But again, I just felt like having the threat of this other thing that could come back again later, but at least for now we've like gotten rid of it, would have been like a nice way of like being like, this is why the galaxy needs to come together. I don't know, I just something about it felt unsatisfying to me at the end, even though I get what you're saying about diplomacy being a very Star Trek way of of ending things. I just wanted something more. When the threat was that big, having it just be a misunderstanding, I don't know, it just irked me. Like, it was like the threat that big, I wanted it to be either deliberate or completely like, we just don't know anything about like life other than ourselves, and we just assume that we were it. But having it be kind of in between that, like, was kind of like,
hey, maybe the translator was wrong and they really didn't realize that there was anything living.
No.
Maybe what they saw as life was just no more than plants, and they didn't even acknowledge everything else, and the translator left the nuance for that.
No, it's possible.
So there you go. Fix your head canon.
And I mean, but this is a valid concept that, like, you'll have to refresh my memory. I don't know if Discovery, where Discovery, again, they have these hybrid concepts but don't quite follow through. If species 10C is literally the only life that they know, literally, like, there's no plant life, there's just the 10C, not microbial life, nothing, then would they even have the concept of life beyond themselves? So that would have been fascinating to discover, to delve into. I don't think Star Trek could do that necessarily, or at least not that easily. But yeah, so that would be like, you wouldn't even be able to communicate with a creature with a species like that, because it would be, because they're literally existing in a different dimension, because they're not even able to intellectually conceptualize that something beyond themselves exists. Yeah, that would be fascinating.
Well, and I mean, that was what I was thinking of with the fact that there's so few stars and everything out there too, was like, we look up at space and we see like all the stuff out there, and we start imagining that, what could be there. If you look out there and you only see like a few dots, like, there would be like the galaxy itself, like in one direction, like, as this really bright thing, and then there'd just be like a few dots scattered elsewhere. Like, do you imagine like, about life living in those other places? Do you have that, like, does that concept even like pop in? And so again, for the hard sci-fi part of me thought there was really like some very interesting stuff to mine that we didn't get into. But again, I get that it's 10, 12, whatever, however many episodes, that's all they got. So they can't delve too deeply. Certainly not if they leave it until the last 2 episodes. Maybe we could have had a little bit of less wringing our hands about book and a little more, interacting with these guys. But anyway.
Yeah, I agree there.
Yeah. But
I like book, but
yeah, and that's the thing. I like book, and I even like the idea that, this couple, because book doesn't come from a Federation background, and this couple can have this, this issue, especially with the trauma that he suffered and everything else. felt like with this limited time that they had, it could have been less a part of the season, and
Yeah.
more just getting on with the plot. But yeah, we talked about Sora. We talked about the fact that this intelligent, they're finally doing something with it after basically skipping through season 3 and barely referencing that they had the supercomputer inside their systems, but we're actually like delving into it now as a character. And the idea of Federation's leery of having artificial life running the ship. And again, we've always had these neat discussions around artificial life, TNG, Voyager. We've gone through this kind of thing, but now we have one that's like literally controlling the ship. And so, what do you guys think about how they handled that aspect of it, Stephanie?
It definitely fit with the theme of this particular season, though, of establishing trust, establishing boundaries, making your intentions known, and there was a lot of emphasis on emotion in this season, and that's what Sora was feeling. She was actually, do they establish a gender for the ship? I can't remember, but they established that Sora was concerned about the crew, and that's why it was trying to hide information. And eventually it came down to explaining why Stamets found that disconcerting and coming up with a solution for progress. I understood the element of trust they were trying to show by having the kill switch destroyed right away. Though I'm still a little bit wishy-washy on if I feel like that was a good idea or not.
Well, it's kind of funny because when you have, like in fiction, you've got Data on one hand and Cylons on the other. It starts becoming like a little bit like, or Terminators even, or whatever. Like over there, it's just kind of like leery about the machine, thinking for itself, and then also having complete control over our environments.
Well, it's not even just the machine. It's like if a typical living organism as established in Star Trek was in that much power, there'd be a way to kill it if it went bad.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, like you think about the fact that like computer viruses and hacking and things are real, like or in like, I mean, like anything that could then like take control of the ship or alter the ship's personality or whatever, and then you stuck in an environment that you have no control over. Yeah.
But I don't know. I completely lost my train of thought as to where I was going with that. I guess it's a good way to have a new ship computer voice, though. I mean, granted, this does the origin of the ship predates our standard computer voice, but it definitely gives reason to why it doesn't get updated when it travels into the future. And I miss Nigel Barrett as the computer.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It is a neat thing to do, considering the fact that there are a lot of sci-fis where the ship itself does become a character in and of itself. And while that hasn't been a heavy focus in many of previous Star Treks, the ships themselves are distinguishable, sometimes only on the interior, but between even the same class of ship. So it is kind of neat that they're finally giving a ship an actual personality to distinguish it from every other ship, which we haven't seen a lot in Star Trek, but you do see that in, I mean, Farscape is by far the most obvious, but that's not the only one where the setting is also a character in and of itself. So, I mean, even DS9 to a point. The station itself had personality.
Although that was
fun.
Yeah, that was because of like the programming that was still lingering or whatever. It wasn't like an it wasn't an AI. It was just they had problems. Yeah.
It's still kind of that same general concept of establishing the environment as a character.
Right.
And developing Sora just takes it a little bit more literally, but still adds complexity to the setting of the actual show.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Ryan, how do you think about how it's handled? I mean, because this is definitely territory. I mean, Picard season 1 went heavy into the territory of, artificial life and whatever. And so how do you feel like this kind of like works in with Star Trek and in artificial life? And how do you feel about it personally?
Okay, so I liked I like that they spent an episode considering and Stamets had to be convinced, and I felt like, hey, this is good. Again, this is Trek. To begin, the trial is Data alive, But here's the thing: getting rid of the kill switch was fundamentally stupid. Zora's benevolent personality developed, over the course of a few months. It's entirely theoretically possible that logically she's going to come to the conclusion that she must be in control of all organic life, and otherwise it's going to go crazy. So here's the thing: it's just so synonymous with Discovery's concept of oh, you've learned, all is forgiven, we'll never mention the fact that you started the Klingon War again. And the thing is, if Burnham goes crazy again, they can always pull out a phaser and stun her. They literally just got rid of the only mechanism of control over that they had, the only power they had over Zora. Even Data had an on-off switch.
Yes.
Only command officers knew where it was, but he had one. And Starfleet's history with AIs, with cybernetic organisms, either go to it's Data, or it's the Doctor, or it's Control, or the intergalactical robot creatures, or V'ger, or the Borg. Even
there was the Omega 5 computer or whatever in TOS when they were going to do the battle simulations, but then it just took over the Enterprise and started really destroying the other ships. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Landru,
right?
For that matter,
right.
So yeah, I mean, and Lower Decks did a great job of this. There's literally a place where they store all these evil AIs that they're collecting. So yeah, it was phenomenally stupid to get rid of that kill switch. I love the concept of Zora and incorporating, because places have character, but it's rare for a place to be a character.
Right.
And that's kind of what they're doing here with Zora. So that's fine. I just thought it was just Discovery being Discovery. All it's forgiven. I trust you forever.
I understood the symbolism of destroying the kill switch, but it still wasn't a wise idea, and not because it's an AI, just because.
Right, there have to be restraint, in society. We have restraints on people's actions because that they they can commit crimes, they can go bad, they can do things. So it's you have to be able to. But when it's your environment, you can't just arrest it and put it in the brig. It is the brig.
Exactly.
And fundamentally, Zora should have known that itself. Zora should have been it's possible I'll meet another super intelligence and my code will be corrupted, or I'll be taken over.
That was the whole thing they worried about
in
season 2. Because it was after that Zora, it wanted to incorporate that knowledge, and so that was it was the evil AI, that they were fleeing from when they went into the future. So
they literally forget their own history.
Right. Because that's what I was going to bring up. I loved the fact that they had the debate. I understood, and I even enjoyed the fact that the crew were fighting for Sora when Starfleet understandably doesn't want their ships to be sentient, but it's look, it's already here, it's doing this, and look, we can put in legitimate controls to make sure that if it ever does go bad, does threaten other ships, whatever, we have some kind of control over it to and I mean obviously kill switch, it's that it's not the best, but that's what we have as a control measure. And it's just and then to just get rid of that. I mean, I get the idea of this could breed resentment, because it exists, but at the same time, you need some kind of control just to make sure, because any intelligence can go bad. Like it can happen. And so, yeah, I just thought they were like so naive in that one aspect. And I just wish that one part had been different. Otherwise, I was very happy to see that episode. But I always, and this is what I said to Beth, though. They always forget about all the other examples that they can bring up. Like with the Doctor on Voyager, it was the same way. It was like, oh, can like life be artificial? And it's like, sure, he was photonic rather than an android. But I'm like, there is legal precedent in the Federation that no one ever brings up, that they've had the case of Data versus Starfleet, that somebody should have been like, look, I mean, this is an android that was, asserted to be alive. So how different is a photonic life form who's controlled by a computer than an android? Like it's the same thing, So I just have problems with the fact that they didn't bring up any of these examples. They didn't bring up the examples of bad AI, because that would have been a perfectly legitimate thing for the, Starfleet people to bring up of, hey, like this has happened before, the Omega 5 computer, whatever. Like we don't want this Moriarty. Because of that. Right, Moriarty. Oh, Moriarty.
Troublesome lore.
Yeah, lore. So anyway, I wish that had been part of the discussion, but whatever, that's not too big of a deal. And I get why they don't want to bring up the androids in Picard, because they don't have any, they want to leave that as nebulous as possible in case they get brought up again in Picard. Yeah. But anyway, any other things that you wanted to talk about this season? Ryan, do you have something that you just, because we're getting kind of long on time here, so
but within Star Trek, so I love that. Like I said, what this series does right, they really do right. And I love, I felt like Stamets and Hugh are the parents of the ship, and I loved what they were doing with Hugh, where like they were delving into his own PTSD and everything. He's got to be the we've touched on it. He's got to be the counselor to everyone, but like who does he talk to? Who helps him? When does he get to take a vacation, and a break? And this is on top of the fact that he's not technically even the original Hugh, so which they've kind of never really explored that either, but they kind of, and
he was resurrected by fungus. I also love the fact,
he's resurrected by fungus. Yeah. But I honestly, I love the fact that that they're pretty much the only person he has to talk to that can help him is we're not saying it, but the head of Section 31. I mean, and so it's just I felt like anytime he was on the screen or any of his background story, I was all in for that. And obviously Reno, phenomenal. Any scene,
best addition to the show.
Yes, without a doubt.
Yeah, I wish he was like a true regular that was in every episode, because it's always they always get her in for like 4 to 6 episodes, and that's all you get. It's always such a joy. I mean, I was glad towards the end that she got like the long thing where she was, kidnapped. So she got like 2 or 3 episodes with that, because that allowed her
brilliant too.
Right?
Yeah. She's like, hey, I'm getting hungry.
Honestly though, but that's how great that character is because like for a moment you really thought, and this also plays onto what they did with Tarka, but you thought Tarka killed her. You totally believed Tarka killed Reno, and no, just kidnapped Reno. And I mean, but I was heartbroken about it. Oh my God, they killed the best character on the show.
I know,
and that just goes to show you how when you have a good character portrayed by a good actor, how attached you can get. Because like aside from I'm real quick, Burnham, Tilly, to a lesser extent Book, Saru, Stamets, and Hugh, and maybe Detmer. I know there's a dozen other repeating characters on Discovery. I couldn't tell you their names to save my life. And that's just I feel like we've never really got into them.
Yeah,
to my sense.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, you gave me another thing I wanted to talk about. But yeah, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Do you have anything else?
No.
Okay. Stephanie, anything you wanted to talk about that we haven't talked about?
Well, just kind of picking back off what he just said, the fact that you do have so many of those other characters that have probably about as much screen time as Reno does, but Reno just asserts herself into it so brilliantly that everybody knows that character. We can remember her backstory and that her wife was killed or dead okay, maybe not that clearly, but we remember that she had a wife that is now dead, at least. And she's just this smart ass genius who just doesn't take any shit, and they found her abandoned. She kind of reminds me of like the not the TOS Scotty, but kind of the Kelvinverse Scotty in just the attitude and the snarkiness of things. I think it's a very vague resemblance, but fits better with the Kelvin one than the TOS one.
The one problem I have, because at first she's drinking Aractogeno, and I'm like, okay, she's in the future. But then she's like, oh no, I like got hooked on these like years ago. And I'm like, no, nobody in TOS Federation was drinking Ractogenos. Okay, that's Klingon. And again, the writers just were like, oh, what's like a weird Star Trek drink? Oh, Ractogeno. The writers didn't even think to research that or anything. Like, there was no way people were drinking Ractogeno. Even in the Trouble with Tribbles time travel DS9, they ordered a Ractogeno on that station and nobody knew what it was. Nobody was drinking Ractogeno in Federation space, okay? All right, sorry.
I don't know. I'm willing to believe that Reno was the type of character who found herself on Kronos and was able to just mingle no problem, because her attitude everyone was like, well, she looks human, but I kind of like her. Sure, give her whatever she wants.
Do we know Reno's wife was human?
I
actually believe they established I think they did establish the species. That wasn't Klingon though, but I think they did say that she was not a human, but she was something. I don't remember. Yeah,
I think it's totally plausible with Reno. Any other character, no Ractogeno, but Reno, I'd buy it.
But real quick, I just want you both to remember this conversation about Reno, because when we do Strange New Worlds, I have something I have to ask or want to reference. So make a mental note. Okay.
All right. I'm sorry, Stephanie. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about, or was it just about like the side characters? Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's funny because that's the thing I wanted to talk about too, because it was like, it felt like we finally got a character for Detmer. And then like this season, it was just like, oh, you'll see her out of the corner of your eye in some scenes, but it's like we completely backtracked on everything we were doing with Detmer. Like, she's just again like a character in like the sort of the corner. And again, they tried like to take a few of the characters and like give them like a half an episode or whatever, but it's just like, guys, it's an ensemble cast. You can develop these people. You can especially the ones who have been with it since season 1. Come on, poor Detmer. Like, it's like she should be like second officer by now or something. I memean, come on, with the attrition rate on this ship and how everybody's doing musical chairs at the captain seat. Like, I don't know. I just especially with Tilly being gone too, that's like another that's a huge portion of like screen time that can be given to other characters now. So I don't know. I was very disappointed that it seemed like, even though we had, because we lost some characters, that we had some space for new characters, that we or not new characters, but it's showcasing the characters that have been around, that we didn't take advantage of that. Because I feel bad for these actors that they're doing the show and they've been doing it for 4 years, and it's like they haven't really gotten like a lot to do. And I just want to see next season for them to try in some way to incorporate those other characters in a more, in a bigger way within the plot of the whole season, rather than just giving them, oh, maybe you have an episode where we talk about your character, but then that's it.
I mean, even Adira, did we even reference the Trill? I mean, at all this season? Was that even?
Yeah, because they had that Trill caretaker holographically come to the ship to help with separating them into the separate body.
But that was about it.
The artificial body that they created.
And that was more blue. Than
it's true. Yeah.
And it also seemed to be like that was part of the setup for the Sora storyline as well.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, they did. I think they did an okay job of sort of like dovetailing that in a way that felt like it worked. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about, that I did sort of hint at the beginning, was Saru and the Vulcan presidents.
Yes.
I am here for it. I didn't know
Me
that
too.
I would be until it was presented to me, but as soon as I saw it starting, I was like, yes, this is great. I want this.
That is a Star Trek romance that might actually work.
I know. It's so cute too. I know, because they're both so like stoic characters, and they both are just sort of like hesitantly like doing just nice gestures towards the other one, and
So
Saru was so
precious.
uncertain of himself, and I was just like, it's so adorable.
It is. It's absolutely precious and heartwarming and so pure. And yeah, that is by far the best development we've had of any Star Trek couple.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Ryan, what do you think about Saru and again, I should have looked up the names, but the Vulcan president.
I believe it's Trina, because I used Tarina or Trina because I actually used that name when I was talking about the Federation president. But anyways, yeah, because if you're looking like IMDb, and depending what episode you're on, there's like 6 presidents listed.
Oh, right. Yeah.
There's the Earth president, the Federation president, the Vulcan president. It's like, okay, but yeah. Well, first off, that actress is like nailing it
Yes.
for the part. I would like, if they do go political next season, I would love for like there to be a race for the president of the Federation, and she's running against the current president for the Federation, because I'd vote for her, honestly. But
I did
never
like that
quite
they
trusted
made the president of the Federation someone that you're not supposed to like, but at the same time can understand the decisions that they're making. I thought that
Yeah.
was well done. But
Agreed.
I'm sorry for interrupting.
I mean, she came across as she just came across as totally political, which is
Yes.
fine, which is what she's supposed to be. She is a
Right.
president, but maybe that's the difference. Maybe that's the difference, because she came across as, oh, this is what I expect of a politician, whereas the Vulcan president came across as a Vulcan.
Right.
I mean, yes, she played politics, but it was just like, totally different.
Well,
It's like,
yeah, I mean, she
yeah,
has this
I agree with
horrible
you.
position of trying to keep the Romulans playing nice with the Vulcans, and I'm sure the fact that the Vulcan is the
Yeah.
president means that the Romulans are always quick to say, like, hey, you're showing favoritism to Vulcans and Vulcan, So, like, yeah, she's got a huge political issue to deal with with her world, too. But yeah, no, I very much
absolutely.
like her depiction, yeah.
And I mean, if they don't do next season, if they don't do an episode, like a war letters episode, like Dearest Trina, Saru's writing her, something like that. We're exploring a nebula, and like she's writing back, I want that. They have to do that. That's all I ask for
Oh,
next
that
season.
would be awesome. I would love that.
That would.
Yeah, I love Saru. I mean, Doug Jones, like, has this wonderful career, but because of like, the fact that he, like has like sort of an unusual body shape, being very thin and tall like that, a lot of times he's under heavy makeup. And I don't think people recognize the fact that this is the same guy that's doing all these different parts and all these different shows and movies and stuff. But like he has a huge career, and the way that he gets Saru, even in just body language, is like so well done. Like the way Saru walks, the sort of swaying arms, like he comes from an aquatic background, and sort of like the way that he's sort of like almost swimming as he walks, it's just like so nice. Like it's such a cool thing that he's just like created this alien character, and and with the personality and everything incorporated into it. I just love Saru, and I want him to have this happy relationship. And I like the fact that they're showing like in the future, because even though the Federation was always supposed to be this nice place where all these races got together, we almost always saw the same races together in romantic couplings, right? Like there would be the odd Spock or the odd like Alexander, but that was always pointed out as, this is a like special thing. This is a thing that's very unusual, and we don't know how to deal with people who come from 2 different racial backgrounds, and it's hard for them to integrate into any society within the Federation. They're showing now there's a lot more of those. That's why I thought that Ferengi we saw was a Ferengi Klingon mix.
And that makes a lot of sense with the fact that the president was a Cardassian Bajoran mix. Presumably with some human in there too.
We have,
Yeah,
but in this case, Burnham
president.
uses an example that the Bajorans and the Cardassians have like put aside their differences. Like Burnham specifically says that so like this isn't like the ones we've seen before are cases of like rape, you know, like where Cardassians rape Bajoran women, or I mean, put them in a position where if they didn't consent, it was going to be bad for them or their families. So it's kind of, I mean, it's rape without calling it rape.
It's different.
It's
but this seems to have been like a consensual thing that the family, you know, like they came together. So,
and like she didn't seem ashamed of either half of her either.
Right.
So like she was free to embrace both sides.
And this would be an episode in and of itself, but it's not, you know, biologically speaking, not all these species, you know, maybe they can romantically couple, but I mean, that might be the full extent of it.
Well,
I mean,
remember, we're all descended from one like sort of race that then like salted their DNA into all these worlds. That's why we can all like interbreed. That was established.
But there are still problems with it. Like, didn't they establish that in Voyager, even with B'Elanna being half human, that there was trouble with her and Tom?
Paris.
Or am I thinking of something completely different?
No, I remember that too.
Oh, well, yeah, I don't remember that. I do remember that Dax, when Jadzia was married to Worf, they had to, they had to have Bashir like see, like, because they said like there were going to be problems with the Trill Klingon coupling, but they wanted children, and so because that was the thing, she had just gotten to dig the knife in deeper in that finale of season 6. Julian just told her that, you know, like, I have the way that you guys can actually like have like a child, you know, like it'll be difficult but you can do it, and so she was happy, and that's why she went to the Bajoran temple, was to thank the prophets, you know, for
something she's never done before.
Right.
Maybe that's probably what I'm thinking of, and it was so tragic that I just associated it to B'Elanna and Paris instead, because they actually had a kid and it was less painful to remember then.
Yeah, because Kira had convinced Dax to pray to the prophets beforehand, and so she was like, "Oh, I might as well thank them then because I got this good news." And that's where Gul Dukat was there, and he murders her just after she got the news that she could get pregnant and they could have the child. So it was just like to dig that knife in just a little more with the Jadzia death.
Take that, Terry Farrell.
Yeah, I think I just changed my memories to make it less painful.
I don't know, because I mean, again, it's not really that important, but I kind of have a vague memory of them touching on it in Voyager too.
Maybe. I mean, I guess I'll get to that when we get there, because that's not until like season 5 when they get together, you know. So.
And I mean, you know, quick Dragon Con plug if like your listeners are interested on this, but the head of the biology department at Duke University, big Trekkie, and he goes to Dragon Con and he puts on presentations on the biology of Star Trek, and he's done presentations on like the validity of seeding DNA and like how stupid that concept is, and so forth, and whether or not it actually work or not.
It might not like make real sense, but it's an explanation that accounts for all of these humanoid races and all the interbreeding that's going on. So let's just run with it.
I recently saw a meme that was of that character being like, so if you've evolved to look like us, now you have an explanation as to why. Unless you look like a crab. Evolution really likes crabs. So in that case, congratulations and or condolences.
Oh, man. All right. So yes, Ryan, you had one other thing you thought of that you wanted to bring up.
I did?
Yeah, you typed about it in the chat.
Oh, that. Okay, sorry. I was just so the president of Earth, you know, mentioning all these presidents that were in it, and I think it was the very final episode where you got to see Stacey Abrams walk on as the president of Earth, and this in fandom, in fairness, I think all the people that were angry about this gave up on Discovery already anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But I guess my general thoughts on this, without getting too political, is that you know, if you've got a celebrity who is a fan of Star Trek and they want to do a cameo, and you have a place for them to do a cameo, and it's not in the slightest a character that is all important to the storyline, why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you take advantage of that? So
yeah,
but
I mean, it's
triggered a
certainly
lot of
not
people.
the first time that they've used like real life like celebrities in Star Trek before. There was a transporter chief
Yeah.
in Next Gen who was an actual astronaut, and again, like the character might have had like a line, right? Like there wasn't like a big role because they're obviously
Yeah.
not an actor. And again, that was the thing, like I didn't feel like Abrams delivered her lines that well, but it was such a short part and just a short bit that it was like,
she's not an actress.
Right, she's not an actress,
Yeah.
and I didn't really care. And honestly, I don't care. Anyone, like you say, Ryan, anyone who's a big name that wants to be on Star Trek, and they'll just give them a little cameo. Regardless of their political beliefs or whatever, it's just kind of like they're just there for a second. I mean, like I'm not going to get worked up about it.
I mean,
if they give somebody a major role and they're just like delivering lines horribly, and it's just like, oh my god, why? That would be a different thing. But for just a walk on, I mean, she says like two things, I think.
I mean, you don't have to like Iggy Pop's music to be fine with him having been what's William's species? Vorta, yeah, and Deep Space Nine. It's neat. It's a neat little Easter egg for the people who
get it. Right, and he was fine as a Vorta. He was a little weird, but like that was kind of like okay, like
he's a Vorta.
Yeah, he's a Vorta. It's fine. They don't all have to be like Wei-Yun, Yeah, and Stephanie, what do you think about Stacey Abrams in the cameo?
I mean, like you guys already said, why not be on it if they have a spot that they can fit them? And I mean, yeah, making her the president of Earth was definitely a political statement, one that I can be behind myself, but it's really, as Ryan said, the people who are really complaining about it are the people who already brush the show off for other stupid reasons of being too woke or whatever. So yeah, I really don't think it's that big of a controversy. They've done it so many times before. You don't even recognize them some of the times because they are coming in as an alien. Who was it that came in as one of the fish people in Next Gen?
It was it Don Henley? No, it was I feel like it's like someone on Eagles in the Eagles or something like that.
But I mean,
I feel like that.
It's nothing new. I mean, hell, we even had Stephen Hawking appear.
No, that's true. Yes. Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, the celebrity cameos. Yeah, I mean, you might say that they're like a little bit of a, I get why people don't like celebrity cameos, but at the same time, when it's small parts, I don't see the
didn't we have like the actual prince of a country being a random extra in something? How is that any different? So it's always
I mean,
happened.
some people find celebrity cameos a little tacky, and I do get that, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, as long as they're not like a show, like a focus of an episode, like I don't see the problem with it.
It was Mick Fleetwood. I looked it up in case you're curious.
But yeah, Star Trek's definitely had the people on, celebrities, non-actor celebrities on before.
Now, again, there's a difference between having a musician and having a politician. And I can even get how you're saying having Stacey Abrams on here is a tacit endorsement of her policies and her position. So I can respect people having concerns about it. And I can also respect that there's a line like, Stacey Abrams, yes. Pol Pot, no. I mean,
yeah, I like that you made sure to make that like as far apart as you could.
Yeah, it's Star Trek.
Everybody, take your glasses off. No, that was what Pol Pot did. He thought glasses were a sign of intelligence, so he made sure to murder anyone who owned glasses. They rounded them up and they shot them all.
That's what happened when history teachers take over.
So all right, so I think though that with that we've covered as much as we can within the time frame, and we still went a little bit over what I wanted to, but
with only 3 people.
Yeah. All right, so now it's time to say our goodbyes, let people know where they can find us. So let's start with you, Stephanie.
Oh, well, goodbye. It's been fun as always. I enjoy talking Star Trek. That's why I'm on these with you.
We
But
enjoy
where
having
can
you.
you find me? Thank you. I can't remember when we last did an episode and where I was being found then, but I have since come up with a pen name. So if I didn't have that the last time, here it is. If I did, well, but I'm just repeating myself. But previously, I repeated El Crea many, many times. You can now find me as AK Stevens on Twitter. It's A_K_Stevens. And that's with a PH. And on there, you'll find me either talking about writing, Sailor Moon, sometimes Star Trek, or going off on political tirades. And that's about the only place I'm semi-active that is pretty much public. I do have a Instagram called Witch's Teacup, where it's been kind of dead lately, but every once in a while I go on there and post either about tea or witch stuff. So that can be anywhere from nature to tarot cards to, again, tea. So just depends on what you want to look me up for. Yeah, AK Stevens on Twitter or Witch's Teacup on Instagram.
All right.
And once upon a time, El Crea.
Right.
Well, internet, I will never say goodbye to you. We have a constant connection. That's what my cell phone's for. You can feel free, track me down on Twitter or Facebook, or you can even go to geekstranger.com, which I'm making no guarantees, but if I continue to stay gainfully unemployed for much longer, might actually see some stuff done to it.
You might actually write the third part of your 3-part essay on the D23 from 2019.
It could happen,
It's funny when I looked at your website, it is this part 2 of 3, and part 3 of 3 never got written. That was 3 years ago.
I'm trying to remember I think part 3 was going to be about Obi-Wan, upcoming Obi-Wan series. So I can do it as a review of everything I predicted was right.
Yeah.
But I mean,
there's your whole essay.
Exactly. Ta-da. So it's I've got some free time on my hands, and all I'm doing is getting into internet fights. So that's a distinct possibility. Yeah. Otherwise, you can find me, like I said, through other people's social media. A month ago, I would have said I'd be at Dragon Con this year, but it's getting iffy between again no job and COVID on the rise again. It's like the fates are determined for me not to make it back to Atlanta. So we'll see. But in the meantime, definitely track me down online.
All right. So Stephanie and Ryan, thank you so much for being on the show this week.
Thanks for having us. And thanks for remembering to hit record. Well, thank you, Ryan, for pointing it out.
And that's a wrap on our Star Trek Discovery Season 4 episode. What did you think? What do you think of New Trek in general? What would you like us to talk about with regard to Star Trek or New Trek or anything along those lines? You can let us know in a whole bunch of different ways. One way is to email us at everything@42cast.com. Another way is to go to our website, 42cast.com, and leave a message on any of the episodes there. You can also go to our Facebook at facebook.com/42cast, or you can get in touch with us on X or Instagram at 42cast. You can also leave us reviews on Apple Podcasts. The reviews really do help because the more reviews we have, the more we'll show up in searches. And so if you have an Apple account and have the time to leave us a review, we would greatly appreciate that. I also want to let you know about the ESO Network Patreon. That's where you can support all of the shows on the network. There are different tiers that give you different perks. You can get exclusive episodes of some shows, you can get early episodes of some shows, and you can get access to some exclusive ESO Network podcasts that you can only get through Patreon. You can look at all the details for that at patreon.com/ESO Network. And if you have the funds to contribute, we would greatly appreciate it. I still hope to revive Time Streams and Legendary Forces this year. It's taking a little longer than I had anticipated, but the 42cast remains my priority, and so getting this running on a weekly basis is always the thing I'm going to prioritize. For those of you who don't know, Time Streams is a show where my friend Juliet and I are going through all of Doctor Who from the beginning. You don't have to buy the episodes because we explain everything important that happens as part of our discussion, but it certainly helps if you can follow along and watch the episodes before you listen to our commentary. And Legendary Forces is a show where Juliet and I, again, but joined by Joe, Ashley, and Corey, are going through all of Star Wars fictional media from the beginning. So that's anything that's Star Wars related that happens within the Star Wars universe. That's why I say fictional media. It's to differentiate it from things like fanzines or magazines or documentaries or things that are actually about the making of Star Wars or about the Star Wars universe, but in a factual way rather than the fictional world of Star Wars itself. So we discuss how the Star Wars universe evolved over time, the things that were considered canon, not canon by the audiences that were reading them and all of that, as well as discussing how good each particular book, comic, TV show, movie actually is. So if any of those sound interesting to you, we still have some episodes. You can find them in all the same places you can find the 42 cast. So, you can look at all the banked episodes already, but I'm hoping to release new content for both of those shows this year. So keep watching this space. In other news, Beth and I have finally gotten past Clone Wars. We are on the Bad Batch. Wow, what a increase in quality of the series, going from Clone Wars to Bad Batch. I was really disappointed with Clone Wars Season 7 until the last few episodes. I felt like it was almost a complete waste of their getting new episodes, because I know there was a really big gap between Season 6 and 7. But wow, Bad Batch is so much better than Clone Wars even at its height. And really, really enjoying that. We're on Season 1 still. But yeah, I plan to go through all 3 seasons pretty much as a straight shot there. So keep watching this space. We'll definitely be talking about those Star Wars animated projects. Well, that's a wrap for this week. Join us back next week when Iman Vellani will not be joining us. And until then, this is Nathan signing off. You have been listening to the 42 Cast, copyright 2023. Got a question for the ultimate answer? Contact us at everything@42cast.com. Theme music is Sharper Swords by Brandon Ellis. Check out more of his work at www.cityfires.com. The 42 Cast is a proud member of the ESO Network.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.